Welcome to Stories That Hurt. Here, we share stories that touch the heart, stories that invite you to pause, feel, and reflect. The waiter who became a millionaire by accident, he was a broke waiter in New York. Until one annoying customer changed his life forever. My name is Daniel. And for a long time, my life could fit into two words: barely surviving. Every morning, I woke up in a tiny, dim studio apartment in Queens with paint peeling off the walls and the constant hum of the subway outside my window. The mattress was too thin, the radiator too loud, and the rent too high. I worked at a mid-range restaurant in Midtown Manhattan, not the kind celebrities went to, not the kind tourists bragged about. Just another place with white tablecloths, two bright lights, and a manager who believed yelling was a form of motivation. Most days I was on my feet for 12 hours, sometimes more. My feet ached, my back burned, and my smile was a costume I put on and never quite took off. Table 4 is still waiting on their drinks. Daniel, my manager, would snap. Yes, chef, I'd answer. Even though he wasn't a chef and everyone knew it, I had come to New York with a dream like so many others. I wasn't here to be a waiter forever. I wanted to build something, a business that would matter. I grew up watching my mother cook in our small kitchen, turning cheap, simple ingredients into something that made people close their eyes just to taste better. Lentil soups, roasted vegetables, brown rice with herbs, grilled chicken with lemon and garlic. Nothing fancy, just real. Healthy food. I used to imagine an app that would bring this kind of food to busy people who didn't have the time or money for expensive wellness trends. Real food delivered fast at a price that didn't hurt Dot, but in New York, dreams cost money. And I had none. Most nights, I came home with a handful of crumpled dollar bills and a few coins in my pocket. They smelled like coffee, spilled wine, and desperation. I'd dump them on my small kitchen counter, count them slowly, subtract rent, subway, groceries, my student loans. And every month I found myself asking the same question: how do people make it here? Then there was him. He always sat at the same table, the two-top by the window, just far enough from the draft, just close enough to watch the city move. A man in his late 50s, maybe early 60s. Iron gray hair, an expensive-looking coat he never took off until his water arrived, glasses that made his eyes look slightly smaller. He had the posture of someone who never rushed and the eyes of someone who had seen just about everything. On the check, his name said Mr. Gray. That's what the hostess had put in when he first made a reservation, and it stuck. He was difficult. The steak is overcooked. The salad is overdressed. The coffee isn't hot enough. He rarely smiled. Sometimes he gave me a look that felt like a silent exam I was doomed to fail. And the tips, always a little less than what you hoped for. Not bad enough to complain, not good enough to be happy about. Other waiters hated getting his table. "You take him, Daniel. He likes you," they'd say, rolling their eyes. I didn't think he liked me. But he always asked for me, and I always did the same thing. I treated him like everyone else. No sarcasm, no eye rolls when I turned away, no spit in his food, despite the jokes we made in the back. I refilled his water before he had to ask. I remembered he liked his coffee black, but extra hot. I knew he preferred the corner seat so he could lean against the wall. When he complained, I listened. "I'm sorry about that, sir. Let me fix it," I'd say, even when I thought the steak looked perfectly medium-rare.y. Because my mother had taught me something I couldn't unlearn. How you treat people says more about you than about them. So I treated everyone with respect. Especially the difficult ones, weeks blurred into months. The city changed seasons, humid summer into sharp, windy fall, fall into winter with its bitter metallic air. The restaurant filled with Christmas office parties and noisy tourists in ugly sweaters. My paycheck looked the same. My dream, that app, that healthy food delivery project, sat in the notes on my phone. A collection of half-finished ideas and late-night thoughts. 1. Tuesday night in January, the kind of night when the wind cut through your coat and every customer seemed to be in a bad mood. Mr. Gray came in. He took his usual seat. I walked over with my usual tired but professional smile. "Good evening, sir." "The usual?" I asked. He studied me for a moment. "You remember a lot for someone who sees 100 faces a day." I shrugged. "It's my job." That night, though, something felt different. The restaurant was quieter than usual. A snowstorm warning had kept most people at home. The soft jazz they played on loop felt almost calming instead of irritating. He looked at the dessert menu longer than usual. And then he closed it and said something he had never asked me before. "What do you recommend?" I blinked. "To be honest, sir, I don't eat dessert much." He raised an eyebrow. "You work at a restaurant and you don't eat dessert?" "I don't really have a sweet tooth," I admitted. "My mom always made healthier stuff. Fruit, yogurt, things like that. But if I had to choose, the lemon tart is the best we have. It's not too sweet." He nodded slowly, like my answer had told him more than I realized. "I'll have the lemon tart. And coffee. Very hot, like you know I like it." I wrote it down even though I didn't need to. Habit. When I brought the dessert, he surprised me again. "Sit for a minute," he said. "If your boss doesn't kill you." My first instinct was to say I couldn't, but then I glanced toward the kitchen. The manager was on his phone, leaning against the counter, scrolling through something that was clearly more important than me. I carefully pulled out the chair across from Mr. Gray and sat down. Just for a second, I told myself. He sliced a piece of the tart, tasted it, and nodded almost imperceptibly. "Not bad," he said. Then he looked up. "How long have you been working here, Daniel?" 2.5 years, I answered. "As a waiter?" "As everything. Host, food runner, bartender sometimes. Depends on who doesn't show up." A ghost of a smile touched the corner of his mouth. "And is this what you want to do?" There it was. The question that made my chest tighten every time someone asked. "No," I said honestly, surprising even myself. Usually I dodge, make a joke, but something in his gaze told me he wanted the truth. He leaned back, eyes still on me. "So what do you want to do?" I hesitated. The dream suddenly felt ridiculous spoken out loud. A broke waiter talking about building a startup in a city where people burned millions on apps that sent selfies to space. I have an idea, I said slowly. For a business. For an app, actually. Healthy meals, real food, delivered fast but affordable. Not the $20 salads you see on Instagram. Stuff people like me could eat without going broke or sick. He didn't laugh. He didn't push back his chair and say, "Good luck, kid." He just watched me. "Go on," he said. Words started to spill out of me like water that had been trapped behind a wall for years. I told him about my mother's recipes, how she could stretch $10 into a week of dinners. I told him about my coworkers who lived on pizza and energy drinks during double shifts, because it was all they could afford and all they had time for. "I think," I said, my hands moving as I talked, "there has to be a way to build a kitchen that focuses only on delivery. No fancy dining room. No waiters, just good food, directly to people. Like a ghost kitchen. We cook in bulk, we use tech to optimize routes, keep costs down." I stopped, suddenly aware of how I must sound. A waiter in a wrinkled shirt, talking about optimization. "You've thought this through," he said. "A little." I lied. I thought about it almost every night for a year. How much would it cost to start? He asked out. I froze. I don't know exactly, I admitted. I've done some rough calculations, but... And why haven't you started? "Because I'm a waiter," I snapped, then immediately softened my tone. "Because I don't have money. Or connections. Or... anything, really." Silence stretched between us. The sounds of clinking plates and muffled conversation filled the gap. He wiped his mouth with a napkin, placed his fork down, and then looked straight into my eyes. "I'm an investor," he said. "I listen to people talk about ideas for a living. Most of them come to me from comfortable offices in perfectly pressed shirts with perfect PowerPoints." He glanced around the restaurant. "And then there's you, covered in coffee stains and hustle." My heart pounded. I didn't mean to pitch you," I stammered. "Oh, you didn't?" he said calmly. "You've been pitching me for months." "What?" He leaned forward slightly. "You treat people well," he said simply. "You never lose your temper. You never roll your eyes when I complain, and I complain a lot. On purpose." I stared at him, uncomprehending. "On purpose?" "I test people," he said. "I see how they react when things go wrong. I see how they treat someone they think can't do anything for them. You've passed every time. My throat went dry. He reached into the inner pocket of his coat and placed a business card on the table between us. Send me your idea, he said. Properly. In writing. Numbers, plans, no fluff. If I like it, we'll talk. I picked up the card with shaking fingers. There was a name, Richard Gray, and a company name I'd never heard of, and an email address. I'm not promising anything, he added. Most ideas die on paper, but you've got something most people don't. You show up. Every day. And you haven't become bitter. That matters more than you think. He stood up, put cash on the table, more than the bill required. Keep the change, he said. Then he paused. And don't let this go to your head. The world doesn't owe you a chance. But when one shows up, don't waste it. He walked out into the snowy night, leaving me staring at the card as if it might disappear. That night, when I finally got home, my fingers were numb from the cold and from counting tips. I put the card on my rickety kitchen table and sat in front of my old laptop. I opened the blank document. The cursor blinked, impatient. What if this is a joke? A voice in my head whispered. What if he's messing with you? What if this is real? Another voice asked quietly. I started typing. I wrote until my eyes burned. I wrote about supply chains and margin targets I'd Googled and only half understood. I wrote about customer segments and partnerships with local farms. I added made-up timelines, month 1, test kitchen, month 3 beta app, month 6, break even. It felt like building a bridge over a canyon, stone by stone. Hoping it would hold dot at 3:47 a.m., I finally stopped. My proposal was messy, too long, and filled with phrases that sounded smarter in my head than on the page. But it was mine. My finger hovered over the mouse. If I hit send, there was no going back. My heart pounded. Sweat gathered at the back of my neck. I clicked. The whoosh of the outgoing. Email sounded louder than the subway outside. The next day felt like every other day. The restaurant was busy. My feet hurt. The manager shouted. Tourists complained. I checked my phone every break like a teenager waiting for a crush to text back. Nothing. A day passed. Then 3. Then a week. No reply. My coworker Marco asked as we folded napkins for the dinner rush. Nothing, I said, forcing a shrug. It's fine. I knew it was a long shot. He snorted. Investors don't get rich by betting on waiters, bro. I laughed with him, even though the words cut deeper than I let him see. 2 weeks later, I had almost convinced myself to forget about it. I told myself I'd been naive. I told myself it was better this way. Rejection would have hurt more. Then, during a slow afternoon, my phone buzzed in my apron. An email. From Richard Gray, subject, let's talk. I opened it with trembling hands. Daniel, I read your proposal. It's rough, your math needs work, and your timeline is too optimistic. But the core idea is solid. More importantly, your story is real. If you're serious about this, and I mean truly serious, meet me at this address tomorrow at 10 a.m. Argrave. Address was in a part of Manhattan I'd only ever passed through on the bus. Glass towers. Real money. I almost didn't go. That morning, the subway stalled between stations for 20 agonizing minutes. My heart hammered as I watched the time crawl forward. When the doors finally opened, I ran through the cold, slushy sidewalks, my cheap shoes soaking through. I arrived at the building at 10:12 a.m., breathless and damp, my hair a mess. The lobby was all marble and glass. People in suits moved with purpose, holding laptops and coffee cups that cost more than my lunch. I felt like an imposter in my worn-out jacket. Richard Gray's office was on the 27th floor. The elevator doors opened to a quiet reception area. A young woman with kind eyes smiled at me. Double quotes, hi, can I help you? I'm here to see Mr. Gray, Daniel Lewis. Her smile widened slightly, like she knew something I didn't. Of course. He's expecting you. The office was not what I imagined. No huge desk, no intimidating leather chair. Just a bright, simple room with a large window overlooking the city and 2 armchairs facing each other with a small table between them. Richard Gray was already there, reading something on a tablet. He looked up as I walked in. You're late, he said calmly. I'm sorry, the subway. He held up a hand. I don't care about the subway. I care that you still came. He gestured to the armchair opposite him. Sit. I sat, clutching my backpack to my chest like a shield. He put the tablet down. Let's be clear, he began. I'm not a charity. I'm not here to save you. I invest in businesses that can work. Your idea can work, but only if you're willing to suffer for it. I swallowed. I'm already suffering, I said before I could stop myself. Then I flushed. He almost smiled. Good, you'll need that honesty. He outlined his terms. He would invest a modest sum, not millions, just enough to rent a small kitchen space for a few months, hire one cook, design a basic app. In return, he'd take a share of the company. A real share. Not some symbolic mentor token. You'll still have to work, he said. You'll still be broke for a while. You'll probably fail more than once before anything works. If you're looking for a miracle, you're in the wrong place. What are you looking for? I asked quietly. He studied me. I'm looking for people who don't quit when it stops being romantic, he said. I've seen plenty of pretty pitch decks. I've seen far fewer people wiping tables at midnight and still dreaming about building something. He leaned forward. So, are you in? I thought of my tiny apartment. I thought of my mother still working double shifts at a nursing home back home. I thought of my aching feet, my tired eyes, my dream buried under exhaustion. Yes, I said. My voice shook, but the word was solid. I'm in. That was the day everything changed. Not because money fell from the sky, but because for the first time, someone with power looked at me and said, maybe. The months that followed were the hardest of my life. I kept my job at the restaurant, cutting my hours slightly, but still working nights and weekends to pay rent. Mornings and early afternoons became my second shift. The new business. We rented a small, ugly kitchen in a cheap industrial building in Brooklyn. The walls were yellowed from old grease, the equipment outdated, the freezer louder than a passing train. But it was ours. Richard introduced me to a young developer, Maya, who had just quit a soul-crushing corporate job and wanted to build something meaningful. She believed in the idea enough to accept a fraction of her usual rate. Plus equity. The three of us sat on overturned buckets in that echoing kitchen one afternoon, surrounded by the smell of industrial cleaner and faint hope. What are we calling this? Maya asked, opening her laptop. I thought about names, scribbled them in the margins of my old notebook. Most sounded cheesy now. What about Mom's kitchen? I joked weakly. Richard shook his head. Too limiting. Too sentimental. I looked at the chip tiles, at the empty shelves. How about Real Bite? I said slowly. Because it's real food, not whatever passes for food in half the city. Maya typed it in. Domains available, she said. Realbite.com, it's not cheap, but it's not impossible. Richard nodded. Then that's it, Realbite? The first weeks were chaos. We burned rice, undercooked chicken, over-seasoned soups. The app crashed 3 times on day 1 of beta. Our first paying customer left a 1-star review because the driver got lost in the food. Arrived lukewarm. I wanted to quit at least once a day. At night. After a 12-hour double life, half waiter, half founder, I'd collapse on my mattress, too tired to eat. My body screamed for rest. My mind screamed that I was an idiot for thinking I could do any of this. Maybe Marco was right. I muttered one night, staring at the cracks in my ceiling. Investors don't get rich by betting on waiters. But then, the next morning, I'd wake up and check the app stats. 1 new order, then 3. Then 5.1 afternoon, an order came in with a note. Thank you for offering something healthy I can actually afford. I'm a nurse, I'm always on the go, and this saved my day. I read that line over and over, my throat tight. A stranger out there eating one of my mother's lentil soups in a plastic container somewhere between shifts. It made all the exhaustion worth it. Then the world changed. The first headlines about a virus overseas felt distant, almost unreal. Something happening on another continent, the way stories usually did. Then suddenly it was in New York. At first, the restaurant got quieter. Tourists stopped coming. Offices sent workers home. Tables sat empty. My hours were cut. The manager snapped more, panicked beneath his usual arrogance. We'll ride it out, he said one week. The next week, he gathered us all in the middle of the dining room. I'm sorry, he said. We're closing. I don't know for how long. Just like that. just like my main source of income disappeared. I walked home that day through streets that felt wrong, too quiet, too tense. Sirens wailed in the distance. People kept their distance, their eyes flicking away. My phone buzzed. A message from Richard. This is where you find out what kind of founder you are. Call me. My hands shook as I dialed his number. We're done, I blurted when he answered. No one's going to order from some tiny new place. Everyone's scared. Stop, he said sharply. Breathe. I forced air into my lungs. This is not the end, he said. This is the storm. And every storm rearranges the landscape. People are stuck at home. They're scared, yes, but they still have to eat. Restaurants are closing their dining rooms. Delivery is about to explode. You are in the right spot if you move. Move how? I asked hopelessly. For the next few months, forget perfect. Focus on useful. Offer a few meals that travel well, that boost immunity, that are cheap. Reach out to hospitals, clinics, anyone on the front lines. If you can find a way to feed them affordably or even for free sometimes, you won't just survive this. You'll matter. The next weeks were a blur of motion. We simplified our menu. Hearty soups packed with vegetables, baked chicken with garlic and lemon, brown rice bowls with beans and roasted vegetables, oatmeal with fruit and seeds. Nothing fancy, just real fuel. We partnered with a local driver who had lost his job with a rideshare company. We created a simple pay-it-forward feature in the app, where customers could buy an extra meal for a healthcare worker. Slowly, orders grew. First dozens a day, then hundreds. At night, when the city's sirens screamed louder than usual, I stood in that steaming kitchen stirring giant pots of soup. My arms aching, sweat dripping down my back under my mask. Maya worked from a corner table, updating the app between bites of whatever we'd overcooked. Our driver, Lise, waited by the door, tired eyes peeking over his mask as he loaded bags into his car. One evening, we got a request from a hospital only a few subway stops away. Nurses, doctors, janitors, security, they were exhausted. They said, too busy to cook. The cafeteria closed early. Can you handle it? Richard asked me over the phone. I looked around the kitchen. 2 burners working at full capacity. 1 oven that liked to shut off randomly. 3 people running on fumes. Yes, I said. We'll handle it. We cooked like our lives depended on it. In a way, they did. We delivered tray after tray of food to the hospital's back entrance. Nurses pushed carts, their eyes ringed with dark circles, their hands red from constant washing. When they lifted the foil and saw not greasy fast food, but warm home-style meals, some of them teared up. This looks like something my mom would make, one nurse said. Her voice muffled behind a mask. I swallowed hard. Mine too, I said. In fact, it pretty much is. When we got back to the kitchen that night, I collapsed onto a crate, adrenaline finally fading. My phone buzzed. A notification from the app, someone had left a review. I haven't eaten real food in days. You made me feel human again for a moment. Thank you. ICU nurse, I didn't realize I was crying until a tear fell onto my phone screen. Hey, you okay? Maya asked softly. I wiped my face with the back of my hand and laughed, the sound broken and full at the same time. No, I said. But this feels right. Weeks bled into months. Lockdowns came and went. Real Bite grew, not explosively, not some overnight unicorn story, but steadily. Like a plant pushing through concrete. We hired another cook. Then another driver. We negotiated cheaper ingredient prices with local farms who had lost their restaurant clients. We worked 16-hour days and slept like dead people. Through it all, Richard watched from the sidelines, sometimes pushing, sometimes pulling me back when I wanted to take on too much. Don't chase every opportunity, he warned. Chase the right ones, and never forget why you started this. I didn't. Every time I was tempted to add fancier dishes or expensive superfood ingredients to impress some influencer, I thought of that nurse's message. I thought of my mother stretching dollars in our old kitchen. 2 years later, the world had changed again. Offices reopened. People went back to restaurants. Some delivery startups that had exploded during the pandemic quietly disappeared. Real Bite didn't disappear. We weren't the biggest. We weren't the most famous. But we were stable. We were profitable. We had a loyal base of customers who ordered not because it was trendy, but because it was real. Investors, other investors, started to call. They used words I'd only seen in business articles. Valuation, Series A, strategic growth. They talked about seven-figure numbers, like normal people talked about grocery lists. The day we signed the deal that officially valued RealByte in the seven figures, I went home, closed my apartment door, and just stood there in silence. The same shabby walls, the same humming radiator, but I was different. I sat on the edge of my bed and called my mother. "How are you, Hiho?" She asked, tired but cheerful as always. "I'm good, Mom," I said, tears already hot behind my eyes. I wanted to tell you something. The company. It's doing well. Really well. How well? She asked cautiously. Well enough that you don't have to work nights anymore, I said, my voice breaking. Well enough that I just paid off your mortgage. There was silence on the other end, then a soft, choked sob. Daniel, she whispered. You did this. We did this, I said. You and your lentil soup. I didn't become a millionaire in a single day. It happened slowly, almost quietly, through 1,000 small choices, showing up when I was tired, staying kind when people were rude, saying yes when I was terrified, but there was one moment when it all came full circle. We had grown enough to open a small, cozy pickup location in Midtown, not far from the restaurant where I used to wait tables. One evening, just before closing, the door chimed. I looked up from the counter. He walked in wearing the same kind of coat, the same glasses, the same calm, assessing expression. Welcome to RealByte, I said automatically, then I smiled. Table by the window, sir? Richard chuckled. I see you remember my favorite spot. I walked around the counter and hugged him for the first time. He patted my back awkwardly but didn't pull away. We sat near the window with 2 bowls in front of us. Lentil soup with vegetables and lemon. He took a spoonful, closed his eyes briefly, and nodded. You did it. He said simply, We did it, I replied. He looked around at the small crowd, office workers picking up orders. A delivery driver scanning his next route. A young woman in scrubs eating quickly at a corner table. Do you know why I told you I complained on purpose? He asked, because you're a sadist? I joked. He laughed, a real full laugh that made him seem younger. No, he said. Because when I was your age, I was a dishwasher. In a restaurant not much nicer than the one you worked in. People treated me like I was invisible. Or worse. Except for one old lady who owned the place. She used to say, how someone treats the help is how they'll treat everyone when they think no one is watching. He looked at me. You treated me well when you had every reason not to. He said, before you knew I was anyone. Before you thought I could give you anything. That told me more about your future than any pitch deck ever could. I swallowed hard. I just did what felt right, I said. And that, he replied, is rarer than you think. We sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the city we'd both given so much to. So, he said eventually, a twinkle in his eye, how does it feel to be a millionaire? I thought about it. About the nights I couldn't sleep from anxiety. About the mornings my body ached too much to move. About the first nurse's review. About my mother's tears on the phone. I began slowly. It feels like I finally get to choose what kind of person I want to be. And I want to be the kind of person who still treats the waiter well. He smiled. Later that night, as I closed up the shop, wiping down counters like I had 1,000 times before, I thought back to the first time he walked into the restaurant. Grumpy and demanding and impossible to please. He hadn't looked like an opportunity. He'd looked like a problem. And that's the thing. I want you to remember if you're hearing this now. Opportunities rarely walk into your life wearing a sign that says, I'm your big break. Most of the time, they look like hard work, like long hours, like a customer who complains too much, like a situation that seems unfair. You don't have to be the smartest person in the room. You don't have to know all the right people. You don't need a trust fund or a perfect resume, but you do have to show up. You have to do your work well when no one is clapping. You have to stay kind when no one is watching. You have to take the shot when it finally appears. Even if your hands are shaking, I was a broke waiter in New York. Now, I'm the co-founder of a company worth more than I ever dared to imagine. Not because I was lucky enough to meet an investor, but because when I met him, I was already acting like the person I wanted to be, and that made all the difference.